Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to another rank review. We're back with them. Yes, this is Soviet rank 2 or USSR rank 2. We're gonna go through each individual plane in this overview, and you're gonna get a little look in the hangar, and we're gonna show some footage of each plane, and I'm gonna take you through all the strengths and weaknesses, the flight style and all that, just what you need to do with these planes. Until we get to the end, we're going to look at the fighters, the attackers, the strike aircraft, and the bombers. And when we come to the end of the video, I'm going to give you a little guide on how to grind through this rank, what the best planes are, what my choices and recommendations would be, what would be planes for talismans and stuff like that. There will be no premiums in this video. We're going to do that in a separate video eventually. I hope this will help you out. I hope it will be a good video for you to give you a better understanding of rank 2. And without further ado, let's go. Hey guys, we're starting off with the first Yak. Yes, it's a Yak. We haven't seen that in rank 1, but here we go. This is the first Yak in the Yak-Line. Looking good, right? Looking good. Where does it sit exactly? Well, right here in this little folder with Yak 1B. Together 2.3 battle rating and 3.1 battle rating. This Yak has a little bit of armor protection for the pilot, and it has the two small caliber guns there and the 20mm right there. It does have fuel in the wings, self-sealing fuel tanks, and the liquid cooling system. So that is it. It does get a few bombs. Here we go. Two 200 and two 50 kilogram bombs. The Yak 1B is kind of similar, but it only has 50 kilogram bombs, and it doesn't have the two smaller caliber guns, but a 12.7mm. That's the difference. Let's have a look at them. Hey guys, here we are, the first Yaks, the Yak 1s. There's two of them in a little folder, as I showed you. And the first one is 2.3 battle rating, the second one 3.0. The Yak-Line is basically known as these are the first planes in the Yak-Line, right? There was nothing in rank 1. As jack of all trades in general, with a focus on energy fighting. And these two first Yaks are quite similar, but they have some small differences in there that we'll take into account. The flight style though and the strengths and weaknesses are basically similar, kinda. The strengths in these Yak ones is to start off with the offensive guns. Now the one has 20mm cannon plus two 7.62 machine guns, and the 1B has the 20mm cannon and one 12.7mm Barrison machine gun. So there's a slight difference in setup there with the guns, but they are good guns, strong guns, one of the greatest machine guns in the game, the Barrison. And yeah, so ammo and is another story, but the guns themselves are good firepower. They also perform well below 4,000 meters. For most Russian planes this is true, but for the Yaks especially, below 4,000 meters is where their strength lies and where they are truly shining as energy fighters. You can see this in the acceleration and the energy retention. That is all better there. The engine just performs better at that altitude. The weaknesses in these Yak ones is compression at high speed, elevator compression, roll rate compression, difficult to get out of high speed dives, and easy to pancake these Yaks. They also have limited dive speeds, and that goes into wing rips. Both of them, basically all Yaks, if you take them into a dive after a 109 or a 190 for example, or a P-51 or a Corsair or something American, a boom and zoomer, you're gonna rip your wings because those planes have a way higher rip speed than this plane. So you're gonna rip off some wings if you do that, so you can't do that. This is an energy fighter with a limited dive speed. You also have problems with flaps in this plane, as you just saw. The Yaks have really poor flap rip speeds. So if you deploy the flaps, they're gonna rip off very, very quickly, already in the early 300s. And that is problematic. 340, I believe, most of them have it. There's also overheating in the Yaks, so you gotta manage your overheating there and sometimes cool the engine off. Most Yaks do not have, I don't think any of them, but correct me if I'm wrong, but most Yaks do not have WEP, War Emergency Power, so you gotta fly them at below 100%, mostly at 95%, and then use full power when you are in engagement and when you're climbing in the beginning. What is the flight style in these Yaks? Mainly energy fighting, but they can boom and zoom very short runs. As I said, you gotta take into account that compression and the wing rips. And as a turn fighter, they are decently maneuverable. They will outmaneuver most enemy boom and zoom planes. They just cannot fight against dedicated turn fighters in a dogfight. But anything but a dedicated dogfighter, you can definitely maneuver with that, especially below 4,000 meters in a Yak. Now these two Yaks can also perform a role in close air support. They both have bomb options. And of course the guns with soft targets, so there might be a role for them in ground RB as well. Are these Yaks competitive? I would say yes. They are very fun to fly, very versatile in their flight style. You can energy fight, you can maneuver, you can even boom and zoom short runs with it. They are very capable as jack of all trades. They can do everything well, so I like that. So yeah, competitive. Fun factor in these planes is medium for me, as they have certain specific parameters that you can't go over, and in that sense they're very unforgiving. Limited dive speed, wing rips, flaps, overheating. You gotta take all of that into account, but if you do, then you can make these Yaks work and be great planes for you. So yeah, the fun factor is medium. You gotta learn to fly them basically. Are they recommended, these Yaks? How highly do you value them? I would say high. I really like these Yaks. They feel very comfortable and steady. It's just that in a dive you gotta be careful. You gotta watch the dive speed. You gotta activate indicated airspeed so that you can see when these planes rip. And if you do that, these Yaks, the first two Yaks in the Yak-Line, come highly recommended. Moving on to the Yak-7B 2.3 battle rating. She sits nicely in the tree by herself right here. And let's have a look. She is same kind of armor protection, just the plate. We have the two Barrison machine guns right there, and through the middle, through the propeller, the 20mm Ixwa cannon. Great setup for the guns, really awesome. We have the rocket options right here with 50kg bombs. That is really nice. This plane has one of the best gun setups early on. Two Barrisons and a 20, that's awesome. Let's have a look at it. We arrive at the Yak-7B, another one in the Yak-Line, second one, or third one actually, in rank 2, a 2.3 battle rating. Good little plane, same story basically as the other two Yaks. Once you know one Yak, you know all of them. There is minute differences though. The strengths in this one are the offensive guns. You have one 20mm and two Barrison machine guns in this one, which makes this one the most powerful in armament so far. Two Barrisons is really awesome to have. Another strength in this plane is the bomb loads. This plane actually can put on rockets, and that makes this plane ideally suited for a close air support role in ground RB. This plane can wreak some havoc there. Also, again, the performance below 4,000 meters in this plane is a strength, and the durability in this plane is also a strength. Feels a little bit tougher than the other two. Weaknesses in this plane. Compression, again, you can pancake this plane. It does compress at higher speeds. There is control stiffening there, and that can make you crash into the ground if you're not careful. So be aware. Limited dive speed again is also a problem, and an early red line, an early rip, and wing rips when you go over the red line and you stay in a dive. So you got to be really careful in dives. Again, flaps, same story. They rip off fairly quickly, so your flap usage is only on the top of your loops and in really slow turn fights. Otherwise, don't use them. Overheating in the plane is also very present, so you gotta manage that well, and if you do, you'll be fine. Now, the flight style in this plane is more or less the same. Energy fighting is the main role, below 4,000 meters. Boom and zooming is an option for short runs, but very short runs. And turn fighting, of course, is also an option. Although this plane is less maneuverable than the other two, it's a little bit heavier. That has an extra gun, of course. This plane is also, as I said, so far the most ideal plane for the close air support role, as it does have rockets. So you can wreak havoc in ground RB and then turn it into a fighter and kill everybody that comes into the air from the enemy team. Is this plane competitive? I would say yes. The rockets make it a little bit more versatile than the other two, which is nice. Give it an extra game mode that it can play. The fun factor in this plane is medium. Again, there's so much to look for in this plane that in the beginning, if you don't know these yaks, you're gonna have trouble, and it might not be fun for you. So in an experienced pilot's hand, this plane is fun. If you're new to them, it may not be so fun. So I'll give it a medium rating there. And is she recommended? How high do we value this plane? I would say high. I like the versatility. I like the energy fighting role that this plane can perform. I like the extra Bearsin gun compared to the Yak-1B. So I would choose this one. Yeah, this is a great little fighter that you have here, and it's definitely worth your time. We arrived at the Yak-9s, two of them, the Yak-9 and the Yak-9B, both 3.0 battle rating. They sit in the line right here, the last of the Yaks in rank 2, in a neat little folder together. This one is the Yak-9. It has a nice bulletproof glass right here, 64 millimeters, which is quite nice. Also here in the back, which is awesome. Steel plate, so a good pilot protection right there. We have the gun set up with one Bearsin and the SWAC 20mm. Fuel tanks are nice and central, not too far in the wings. I like that. Not too many fires, hopefully. This plane does not have any bombs, but the Yak-9B, which is right here, does. Look at that. It has 4 100-kilogram bombs. Same kind of setup with protection for the pilot and the guns. The fuel tanks go further into the wings though. That is not too great. And as you see, it has several options if you want to load it out a little lighter. So there is that. Guys, let's have a look at them. Last but not least in the Yak-Line in rank 2 Soviets are the Yak-9s. Also very nice planes to fly. They both sit at 3.0. which is a decent to good battle rating. It's gonna get up there a little bit. We've seen the 1B already at that battle rating. They still perform very well, and of course as they progressed in the Yak-Line and made better adjustments to them, better engines and stuff like that, the things stayed relevant. Absolutely. A little bit of the same story here. The strengths in this plane: performance below 4,000 meters, energy retention, and the speed on deck in this plane is a little bit faster, which is nice. Our strengths in this plane, also the durability in this plane is a strength. It can take a hit or two, which is always nice to have. Now, for the weaknesses in this plane, you come to the same things that all Yaks have in common. You have the compression at the higher speeds, the limited dive speed that is problematic at this battle rating, especially in up tiers. Going to be difficult with the wing rips again, as you try to catch people. People can always escape from you in a Yak, basically in a dive, most of the time. Although they accelerate really nicely, but then you come very close to your rip speed very quickly as well. So initially, you need to finish planes off in a dive quickly. If not, you can forget about it. You also have the flaps in this plane that rip off very early, and you have the overheating, which is universal for most Yaks. So those are the weaknesses in this plane that you gotta take into account and learn to deal with. The flight style in this plane is also energy fighting for the Yak-9, and the Yak-9B is more of a close air support slash support fighter, because it's more heavy, it doesn't climb as well. It is equipped with 4 100-kilogram bombs, which you know, makes it less of a fighter and more of a close air support in that sense. So the Yak-9 is definitely a main fighter, energy fighter that can boom and zoom and turn fight a little bit, and the Yak-9B is more of close air support, very usable in ground RB, but I wouldn't choose that plane in air RB, to be honest, because the Yak-9 is just better all around. Are these planes competitive? In their respective roles, I would say yes. The Yak-9B might be one of the few fighters that really has specifically designed for ground RB and can throw 4 100-kilogram bombs and then be the fighter that it can be because of the extra weight. Fun factor in this plane is medium. You again have to learn a lot of stuff to get these planes to function correctly and take all that shit into account. You don't want to crash into the ground, you don't want to rip your wings and all that jazz, so be careful with that. But once you get to know them, they might be fun for you. Are they recommended? Yeah, I would still recommend them. The Yak-9 is very nice. I would recommend that highly. The Yak-9B is not my cup of tea, but for somebody in ground RB, it might be the perfect Yak out there. So yeah, definitely I recommend these planes. The Yaks are fun, man. The MiG-315s and the BK, of course. We're looking at these two planes right here. Where do they sit in the line? Well, they sit right here, beginning of the MiG-Line in rank 2, coming from the I-16s, sitting in a folder 1.7 and 2.3 battle rating, respectively. You know, the stat card, not always trustworthy, of course. We have the pilot seat protection with some armor plates right there. We have the gun setup right here. Real nice with the 12.7 in the middle. Fuel tanks, neat and tidy around the pilot close by, which is good. This plane does not have any bomb options. Neither does this one. They are pretty much the same. As for this is the major difference. Two 12.7 millimeter gun pods, and that's where the difference lies with these two. Let's check them out. The MiG-315s, both the 15 and the 15 BK, are two awesome planes that I rediscovered during these flyouts for the Rank 2 reviews, and I had a lot of fun in these planes. They are really hidden gems in the Soviet line. But anyway, let's have a look at these two planes. They are quite similar. They sit at 1.7 battle rating and 2.3 battle rating, the BK. And we'll get into the differences. What are the strengths in these planes? Well, the air start is amazing. These are interceptors and they start in the air, not on the airfield. And that gives a huge benefit. They're not the most awesome climbers, but they're not very bad as well. So they can climb. It's not a strength, but with the air start you can definitely get up to altitude. As the first one, you're mostly the highest plane out there. The offensive guns are another strength. The Bersin machine guns combined with smaller calibers is awesome. And you get a tight beam from the cowling, centralized firepower, which is very good in the beginning. Ammo loads are also awesome in this plane. You have a lot of ammunition to work with. Then there is something else. The dive speed in this plane is also very good. For such a low battle rating plane, it is awesome. There is a weakness though, compared to that, and that is the compression. So you have high end dive speed, but you have a lot of compression, so you got to be careful once you get close to the ground, and maneuvering is going to be difficult because the elevator authority will fail at a certain point. Another weakness is the low speed handling. It becomes a little bit of a sluggish plane where you get slow, and this is sometimes a problem in stall maneuvers, where you might not be in time to finish your nice maneuver. Maneuverability is another weakness. Overall low speed especially, but this plane is a very bad turner, and she doesn't roll very well either. Nothing terrible, the turn time is worse, but maneuverability is a big weakness on this plane, and yeah, that goes right into the flight style. How do you want to fly this plane? This is a boom and zoomer slash boom and runner that you have to fly in a strict mode like that. You can energy fight a little bit as well, but that is not its main role. The main role is boom and zooming, and with strict controls. The very highly disciplined flying is what you need in this plane. Is this plane competitive? Both of them, I would say yes. The BK gets 2 extra guns in gun pods in the wings and is slightly slower because of the extra drag of those gun pods. But for the rest, they have the same performance. The BK is even more of a gunship, slightly slower, but very comparable. Both are competitive at their battle rating. The fun factor in these planes is high. You really learn a lot in these planes, and it can be a lot of fun. Boom and zooming planes to death. Do I recommend these planes? Yes, highly. They are some of the go-to planes in the early sections of this rank, and it's definitely worth your time to fly these things out and get to know them. They're highly fun as boom and zoomers, and they will net you great results, absolutely. So yeah, I can give them my recommendation, and I would definitely say that you should have a look at them. Hello to the MiG-334, the cannon version of the MiG-3. This is the same setup as we saw before, with the placement in the tree right here. After the 15s comes the 34, 2.3 battle rating, same as the BK. You can expect the same things from this. Armor protection for the pilot, a little bit in the seat. X-ray with the 2 Shavak 20mm cannons with 100 rounds right here. I don't know why they couldn't have squeezed in a little bit more of the good stuff, but no more ammo, unfortunately. Fuel tanks, sit nice and tidy, not too far into the wings, which is good. And again, no ordnance further. So this is it. Let's check her out. We're looking at the MiG-334, also sitting at 2.3 battle rating. Of course, the sister plane of the MiG-315s. The MiG-334 has the same setup, has the same flight model, and so on and so on. The only difference is the offensive guns. It has 2 20mm Schwak cannons with 100 rounds per gun, which is not a lot, by the way. Which is not a lot, but what are the strengths in this MiG? Well, you get the air start. That is known. That was the same for the MiG-315s. The offensive guns, I like the 20mm, the Schwak cannons. They do seem to spark a little bit more than they used to, but man, they work well. They work well, so offensive gun is a strength to me. And the dive speed in this plane, of course, again, has the downside, same as we talked about before with the other MiG-3s. There is compression in this plane. At high speeds he compresses and you can pancake this plane very easily. Pancaking means that you crash it into the ground and die. So you don't want to do that, so beware of high speed compression. The low speed handling is not too good in this plane. It becomes a little bit sluggish there. For stall maneuvers and stuff like this can be problematic. Maneuverability and so on is also a weakness. What is the flight style in this plane? Boom and zoom mainly. You've got to fly this plane patiently, take your time and fly it very disciplined. And if you do that, you will do very well with this plane, because with that air start and coming from above at these battle ratings, you're gonna have a lot of boom and zoom fun if you're disciplined enough. You can transition into energy fighting a little bit, but that's not its main role. Its main role is boom and zooming. It cannot turn fight for the life of her. It's one of the worst turn fighters at this battle rating. Doesn't turn at all, like a brick. It's like a bomber in that sense. And you want to stay away from turn fighting. Don't maneuver, don't ever get lured into turn fighting. Is this plane competitive? Yes, definitely. Also the MiG-334 is just as competitive as its 2 counterparts. I would say I like those 2 a little bit better because of the larger ammo loads, but this plane is still very competitive at its battle rating. How's the fun factor in this plane? Yeah, it's high. It's extra exciting in this plane because you need to watch your ammo. And that is also a good thing to learn, actually, watching the ammo count and stuff like that. So you learn trigger patience in this plane. And that's a good thing to learn. So yeah, fun factor is high. Is this plane recommended? How high do you value her? I think this is high. This is a plane that is really good at the battle rating it sits at. And the only downside is the ammo. There's more downsides, of course, as I mentioned, with the compression and stuff like that, maneuverability. But if you use this plane to its strengths and you fly it disciplined in that role, then you're gonna have a great plane on your hands that I recommend highly. So yeah, take it out and have some fun in it. So here we are, we're looking at the turn fighter of rank 2 Soviets. Nice, neat little plane, the I-16 Type 27. He sits right here as the last one. Behind the whole slew of MiG-3s is the I-16 Type 27 to offer you something completely different than what we're used to so far in rank 2. A turn fighter, awesome. She has a little bit of armor in the plate there. She has the two 20mm Schwak cannons here with 150 rounds and the two smaller caliber machine guns with 650 rounds here. She has a big tank here with the fuel, nothing in the wings, which is nice. And she does have the rocket and bomb options right here, which is nice for ground RB. This plane can wreak havoc there. Let's check this little bugger out. We have arrived at the last plane in the MiG-Line in rank 2 Soviets, and that is the I-16. The Soviets do not have a lot of dedicated turn fighters in their ranks, and this one definitely plays that part. It is the outlier and the most maneuverable plane that the Soviets have in this rank, and it is an awesome little bugger. Let's get into this plane. The I-16 Type 27, battle rating 2.7. The main strengths are its maneuverability. It can turn fight, it can roll, and it is the boss of pretty much every plane that it faces except Zeros. And maybe the best flown Spitfire in the world can give this thing competition, and the CW-21 probably. And that's about it. The offensive guns are another strength of this plane. It has two 20mm Schwak cannons and two 7.62mm machine guns. 4 guns, lots of ammo, fantastic. The weaknesses in this plane is speed. That is the main problem in this plane. If you have to mention a weakness, it is it's just not going very fast. It is a slow plane. It is not built very aerodynamically. And yeah, you're gonna have to deal with faster planes coming at you. Lure them in and try to make them turn fight with you. And doing that, you will have a lot of fun in this plane. It's shenanigans, right? What is the flight style in this plane? Well, that is definitely turn fighting. That is its main role. It cannot boom and zoom, it doesn't have the speed for it. It is not very good as an energy fighter due to the energy retention and the acceleration and stuff like that, which isn't too fantastic. But the turn fighting roles she will do with shiny numbers. Fantastic plane for that. She can also close air support in ground RB. She has bombs and rocket options. So this plane might definitely have a great role for it in ground RB. Oh, by the way, the Ki-27 can also outturn us, but that is only when somebody takes it with a friend into too high of a battle rating, because the plane is 1.3. Anyway, is this plane competitive? I would say yes, but barely. You have to be an experienced pilot to make this plane work, and thus it is competitive, yes, but you're facing superior planes, let's say that. What is the fun factor in this plane? I would say medium, although it can be very high for an experienced pilot that knows what he's doing with this plane. If you are more of a beginner, this can be a very frustrating plane where it seems that everybody outperforms you. That's why I cannot say this is a high fun factor for everybody. But the plane is definitely a high fun factor for me and people that are more veterans of this game. Is it recommended? Again, I would say medium here. I do value this plane highly because it's such a nice shenanigan plane for somebody that has flight experience and knows how to use this plane well. But if you don't know how to use this plane, it can be very frustrating and then it's not recommended. So yeah, check out what pilot you are and make your decision accordingly. Moving on to the Lavochkin line, starting with the lag 3s, the 8 and the 11. This is the 8 and this is the 11. They are quite similar. Of course, they sit right here, coming after the I-15s. Right here, 2.0 battle rating, both of them. They do have some armor, both of them, little plate, that's alright. The guns, you have the Beresin right there with 200 rounds and the Schwak cannon with 150 rounds. That's alright, the fuel tanks are nicely close together. The 8 doesn't have any loadouts, but the 11 does have bombs and rockets for you. So might fulfill a role in ground RB. Let's have a look at them. So let's check out these lag 3s, the early ones, 2.0 battle rating in these planes, and they are nice early monoplanes that get a lot of down tiers against biplanes, but that also get up tiers to 3.0. It is a plane that is a bit limited, but let's first go into the strengths. The strengths in this plane are initially the offensive guns. You do get an early 20mm Schwak cannon on this plane, together with a Beresin 12.7mm machine gun. That is awesome firepower for 2.0 battle rating. Not many planes get good later game cannons, and this one does have them. The ammo loads on them are also good, so those are the two main strengths. Now, let's get into the weaknesses. The weaknesses in this plane are a little bit more extensive. The turn time and overall maneuverability is not good. You cannot outturn many planes at this battle rating because most of the planes here are based on maneuverability still. And there is some boom and zoomers out there, of course, but in any down tiers you'll be the least maneuverable plane. But added to that, you also have one of the worst climb rates. Many of the biplanes actually outclimb you. So you have to side climb in this plane and extensively think about your positioning and how you set this plane up, because you have to boom and zoom with this plane. It cannot do much else. It's not great performer. It has an underperforming engine, so the performance is also lacking quite a bit. And that can be a problem in this plane. So you don't recover easily because you don't have good acceleration, not have the greatest energy retention and stuff like that. Your climb rate is not great because of the underperforming engine, and you don't have fantastic turn time either. Not only not fantastic, it's bad turn time. So you lack in major areas, and in up tiers that's a problem, in down tiers as well, because these biplanes, they can usually climb better than you, come above you, and they can outmaneuver you as well if you're not careful. So be aware and be very disciplined in this plane, because he is very unforgiving. The flight style in this plane is mainly boom and zooming and a support fighter, I would call this plane. You have to set it up, take your time to side climb, get up to altitude, and then work your way from the fringes. Boom and zoom, be disciplined, go back up in shallow climbs, and you'll be fine. You cannot, and I would say it's more of a support fighter. You don't want to be the focal point, just like some of the attackers and the strike aircraft in this plane are support fighters. This one is to be used that way as well, from the fringes, from the sides, and let's hope you do not get the focal point of a dogfight, because you most likely die, and only your pilot skills will make the difference. Is this plane competitive? No. And I mean, you can make it work, but you have to take the time and you have to pay attention. No, it is not competitive. What is the fun factor in this plane? I would say it's low. There's not a lot of fun in this plane. It takes a lot of time to set up, and it takes a lot of patience. And then when you go into the battle, it is quite unforgiving. Despite the good guns, it's going to be difficult for you, especially if you're a beginning pilot. Veterans will be able to make this plane work, but yeah, it is not a lot of fun. Do I recommend this plane? How high do I value it? Low, unfortunately. I do not recommend these two planes. They are pretty much the same. There is very little difference in them, and both of them you should basically skip them and wait for the later legs. These early legs are not worthy of your time. I would just stay in one of the rank 1 planes or the MiGs or something else in rank 2, and then unlock the late legs. Those two are much more interesting, and the 66 is definitely worth your time. So have a look at those and skip these. You're looking at the later legs, the 35 right here and the 66 right here. These two planes are in a little folder of their own right here, the 35 and the 66. 2.3, 2.7 battle rating in the middle of the Lavochkin line right there. They do have armor protection, which is nice. The 35 here does not have that frontal bulletproof glass, so that is an upgrade to the 66. That is the main difference between these two. For the rest, the setup is the same also compared to those early legs, with the fuel tanks the same setup, and the Beresin and the 20mm exactly the same. So that is good. They both also have the same bombs and rocket options, both of them, as the leg 311. So yeah, there is that. Let's check out the footage. So let's have a look at these later lag 3s then. The lag 3 35 and the 66 sitting at 2.3 and 2.7 respectively are a step up from the earlier lags. Those had a worse engine. These guys have a better engine and are a bit faster because of it. Therefore, one of the strengths in these planes is the speed below 4,000 meters, which is quite nice. And especially in down tiers, you're going to be one of the faster planes, which is always good. Offensive guns is still a strength in these planes. The 20mm Schwak cannon is good, and the Beresin machine gun, the 12.7mm, is also a good gun. The Beresin might even be better than the 20mm, so it's a good set of guns that with a tight beam. So aiming is might be a little bit difficult if you stepping into these planes, but they have good stopping power, and that is good. These planes also have a decent durability, which is quite nice to have in a plane. You can take a few hits. There are weaknesses, of course, to this plane. The compression is one thing. The earlier lags also had this a little bit, but they didn't have the acceleration and the buildup of speed quick enough that you just notice it more in these later lags. And that's why I mention it here. There is compression at higher speeds. And as these planes also climb a little bit better, you'll be working from higher altitudes, and you can get into trouble with the compression. So be aware, at the higher ends, you're going to have compression. The climb rate in this plane is also a weakness. It's better than in the early lags, but it's still not fantastic. And as you get better opponents as well at 2.3, 2.7 respectively, you are going to need more climb rate. This is still a plane that you're going to have to side climb in. There's also wing rips in dives, and you got to take that into account as well in the longer dives. As you climb a little bit better, you'll have more altitude, and you'll face that problem more often, so be aware of it. A little bit better performance, that is not a weakness anymore, but it's also not a strength. And the turn time, of course, also is not fantastic. It is not a turn fighter, but it is a lot better than in the early legs. That is also a fine change. It becomes a much better energy fighter. because of it, and it's no longer a weakness in these later legs. Now the flight style in this plane, or in these planes, is they are energy fighters. Not the straight boom and zoom roll that the earlier legs had to approach because they couldn't do much else because of the bad engine, the underperforming engine. These two later legs are energy fighters and they do pretty well in it. The 66 is even a little better than the 35, which is good. These planes can also close air support. They do have some ordnance, a few bomb options and a few rocket options. The leg 11 also had that. So yeah, these planes both have that as well, and it can thus be also used in ground RB, which might be a nice place for them. Is this plane competitive, or these planes? They are both competitive, yes. 2.3 and 2.7 battle ratings, these planes can both perform their role quite nicely, and you will do quite well in them, especially in the 66. This 66 really stole my heart. Great plane. What is the fun factor in these planes? Well, it still needs a little bit of time to set up, and it cannot transition easily to all the roles, and it does have a lot of downsides as well, but there are strings now that can make these planes work a lot better than the earlier lag. So I would say medium for the fun factor in these planes. You can get quite some enjoyment, especially from the lag 366. Are these planes recommended? Medium as well. The lag 366 definitely gets a shout out. That is the one you have to try. If I would have to give you my ultimate recommendation, I would skip the 35 and I would take out the 66 if you want to try out the later lag 3s. That one will really give you some fun there. And yeah, so just skip the 35 and take the 66 out. We're looking at the LA5, the Lavochkin, one of the crown jewels of this rank 2. I really like this plane. She sits right here as the last plane in rank 2 in the La line. 3.0, it's a good battle rating for this plane. She has a little bit of armor, not a bulletproof glass plate unfortunately, but she does have the pilot protection from the back. We do have the two 20mm Schwak cannons here, 170 rounds, which is nice. No further supporting guns. We have two 50-kilogram bombs on this plane, and that is about it. This is a really nice energy fighter, guys. Let's have a good look at her. Here we go, the LA5, Lavochkin's first masterpiece. What a fantastic energy fighter this is. This is one of the jewels of rank 2 Soviets, a true contender and a lovely energy fighter below 3840 meters, so or almost 4000 meters. That's where the web stops in this plane. And below that altitude, this plane is a very good energy fighter. Let's look at the strengths in this plane. As she sits at 3.0 battle rating, that is going towards the mid-tier battle ratings, and you're going to get some tough up tiers in this plane. But still, below the 4000 meters, she can definitely contend. She has the speed there as well. So you have performance below that altitude, but also the speed, which is quite nice. So she's a fast plane below that altitude and performs well with acceleration and stuff like that. The offensive guns are also a strength for me. I quite like these guns. Aim feels good, and the 20mm Schwak cannons are still a good gun in my opinion. Weaknesses in this plane. Well, the ammo loads, although they are not as bad as in most of the Soviet planes with the cannons, 120 or 150 rounds. This one has 2 times 170 rounds, but they have no supporting guns, no machine guns with which you can aim or go for soft targets. So it's just these 2 guns, and then the ammo load is a little bit limited, especially in up tiers. And the high altitude performance is also a definite downside of the LA5. it is not as good above 4,000 meters. The flight style in this plane is energy fighting and close air support. It does have a role in ground RB because of the 20 millimeters, of course, soft targets, and the 50 kilogram bombs, two of them that you can put on this plane. At least you can attack one open, or how do you call that, soft targets in ground RB. In air RB, it's not much of a ground pounder, so I'd leave those bombs and just focus on the energy fighting role. It cannot really boom and zoom and turn fight as a main role, but it can definitely transition into turn fighting and maneuvering, and boom and zooming in short runs as well. It has the highest top speed in a dive of the other Soviet planes, so it's the best at that role. But the main role is energy fighting. Is she competitive? Yes, I would say. This plane is very competitive at its battle rating, and the main place where it's competitive is below 4,000 meters. Above, it is not. The fun factor in this plane. Is there a fun factor in this plane? Yes, yes. The fun factor in this plane is high. People don't expect an Li-5 to do well. And if you fly the Li-5, you're a good pilot, you know how to use it. There's going to be a lot of fun because you're going to surprise a lot of people. Do I recommend this plane? How high do I value her? Well, I value this plane highly. And I can definitely recommend you this plane. She is a joy to fly. It's a great energy fighter, and it is one of the highlights of rank 2 Soviet. So go and see what she can do for you. So moving on to the PE3s right here. This one is the later one. You have the PE3 early, and this one, the PE3 2.3 and 2.7 battle rating, sitting right here in their nice neat little folder. And they are exactly the same, by the way, when it comes to armor and stuff like that. So you do have good protection for the gunner and the pilot right here. Same on the other one. The gun setup here for this one, and the other one has an extra smaller caliber gun right here. These are the two Beresins. Ammo loads differ a little bit, but fuel layout is exactly the same on the other one as well, with in the wings and in the fuselage big fuel tanks. Bomb loads are the same as well. You have several bomb loads and rocket options, which is quite nice. Let's have a look. Ah yes, the PE3s. This is the start of the strike aircraft in rank 2, the attackers. There is two of them in the folder, 2.3 and 2.7 battle rating, and they are quite nice. There's a minute small difference between them. They have different guns. The first one gets two Beresins with 150 and an added 7.62 millimeter Scush machine gun with 450 rounds. And the second one gets two Beresins with 250 rounds per gun. That is quite nice. Both of them perform the same way, have the same performance, the same strengths and weaknesses. So let's get into it. They both get an air start, of course, as strike aircraft. Air start is always nice, gives you a little bit of competition when it comes to climbing, and will give you the versatility to play this as a fighter if you want to. The bomb loads are a strength. You get bombs and rockets. You get some nice bomb loads, 500 kilograms. You also have two 250s plus two 100s, which is a nice bomb load, or four 100s, which you start off with. And you have the rockets, six rockets, two different kind of rockets you can choose from. So that is nice. You have the offensive guns, which are good. The Beresins are good as well. If you get two Beresins, you're happy. And the first one gets a little bit less ammo and an extra third gun, Scush. So offensive guns, always nice on attackers, and gives you the option to be a support fighter. The speed in these planes is quite nice. He's quite fast for such a big plane, and speed is good to have. Dive performance is also good in this plane. You put her in a dive, she has a good speed there. Does compress a little bit in the later dive area, but usually you just use it to get away, and that is good. Durability is also good. You can soak a lot of damage. You have the two engines, so it is very survivable when it comes to that. There's also weaknesses though, of course, to this plane, and the first weakness is that she rolls off center a bit. And that means that in a dive, you see it here a little bit, she pulls off. It might be a rudder problem. And rolling off center when planes do that, you can miss the shots. It's more difficult in a dive to get the shots on target, especially when you have to roll when a plane changes its direction. Turn time is a weakness, of course. It doesn't turn too well. It's not a great turner, so you have to keep that in mind. The vertical performance also isn't too great. In the vertical, she does have the bombs and all that. Yes, it's not a light plane as well. So in the vertical, you are going to struggle. Of course, you can also always calculate vertical maneuvers, and if you're in a better energy position, you can chance it. He is a big target though, so you have to keep that in mind. What is the flight style in this plane? Well, close air support and a support fighter is how you can use this plane. In ground RBC can be quite nice because of that variety. She is competitive. I would say yes, it is a strong plane with good offensive guns, usable as a close air support and a support fighter. And yeah, it is competitive at 2.3 and 2.7 battle rating. Fun factor in this plane is high. I had a lot of fun in this plane, but I would not recommend this plane very highly. It's a medium recommendation because you also have the IL-2s and you have a ton of extremely good fighters for the Soviet rank 2. So yeah, why use it as a fighter, and as a close air support I would use the IL-2. So yeah, recommendation is medium. Welcome to the flying tanks, guys. These are the IL-2s, the 1941 and the 1942. These are awesome planes. They don't sit in their own folder here. They sit separate, but they could be in their same folder because they are sister planes. And we're gonna look at them together. The armor protection, this is a tank. This will be the only tank that I ever play. Well, never say never. You never know. Who knows? One day, but it's the same, right? It's the same in both planes. And you have the X-ray. Funny thing here is that the second one, this one, has the 23 millimeters on the outside and the machine guns on the inside. And the earlier one has 20 millimeters on the inside and the machine guns on the outside. So the setup there is a little bit different, but it's minute. Fuel tanks are the same setup, right? So yeah, awesome. We do have a lot of bombs and rocket options. They are the same. Both have all these options you can choose from. So yeah, they are awesome flying tanks that can do a lot. Let's have a look at these two beasts. The IL-2 Sturmovik. Wow, these two planes, man, they are fantastic for their battle rating, and they may be some of the best strike aircraft, battle rating, quality comparison wise, that the Soviet Union has to offer. These planes are attackers, strike aircraft of course, that can attack the ground targets with bomb loads and rockets, but they are also armored fighters that can turn very well and that have great offensive armament in the form of 20 millimeters for the first one and 23 millimeter cannons for the second one at 3.0. First one sits at 2.3 battle rating, and the 20 millimeters are strong enough for that battle rating. But the difference in battle rating lies in that armament mainly, because they have the same strengths and weaknesses otherwise. But both perform very well at their battle rating. Now they do get air spawns, which is of course one of the strengths in this plane. It starts as an air spawn with a strike aircraft. Very nice. But the main strength that this plane has to offer to start off with is the durability. These two planes are flying tanks and have armor protection all round for the engine and the pilot, and very difficult to get the engine to blow up or to get a pilot snipe on these IL-2s, and that makes these things ideal for head-ons. And you don't want to know how many times people actually get lured into taking a head-on with an IL-2. That is something you definitely don't want to do, because they have protected, armored engines and the pilot, all protected by plate armor. The firepower is a strength in this plane. planes. The first one has two 20mm plus two 7.62mm machine guns, and the second one has the 23mm cannons instead of the 20mm cannon. So that firepower is awesome and blows planes away at these battle ratings, really. The turn time is a major strength as well. People often attack these planes and then turn to get a second shot, and then they're in trouble because this plane outturns a lot of the enemy fighters that it faces, and it can be a hell of a lot of fun to dogfight in these planes. Do keep it in the horizontal though, not in the vertical, because the flying tank part of this plane makes them bad in the vertical. The bomb loads on this plane are versatile. You have rockets, you have bombs, and yeah, you have a lot of combinations between rockets and bombs as well. So the bomb loads are very versatile, and you can be adjusted for the role you want to play and how heavy you want to load this plane up. There's also weaknesses though, of course, to this plane. Main thing, as I mentioned a little bit before already, is the vertical performance. Because of the amount of armor and guns and stuff on this plane, you're gonna have troubles in the vertical performance. So you don't want to go in loops and stuff like that to defend yourself. Keep it in horizontal turns. That's where this plane shines. The other weakness is the climb rate. The same reason basically. It is so heavy, this plane, that it does not really want to climb very well. The flight style in the plane is close air support. And a turn fighter. This plane of course can function really well in ground RB. It is an absolute beast there. I have checked with some people flying tanks a lot, but the IL-2 is amazing in ground RB. And yeah, close air support as well in air RB. And of course he can function as a turn fighter and support fighter. And this can actually be a main. And what I mean with that is most attacker strike aircraft can sometimes function as a support fighter, but this can function as a main fighter. It's no problem. You can be the focal point of attention. You can outturn a lot of planes. So that is a fun thing in this plane. Is she competitive? Yes, with an exclamation mark. This thing is absolutely freaking amazing. Both of them at 2.3 and at 3.0, both of these planes have their place and are very competitive at that battle rating. What is the fun factor? Is it actually fun to fly? Yes, you can have amazing amounts of fun in these planes. You can fulfill multiple roles during a battle and first throw off your bombs and rockets and then go into attacking some of the aircraft and have a lot of fun there. So yeah, the fun factor for me in this plane was very high. And is she recommended? How high do I value this plane? Very high. This plane has a high recommendation from me. This is the go-to plane to bomb with and to have some fun with against aircraft. This is the best bomber / strike aircraft in rank 2, and I would definitely use these two planes for that function if you want to bomb and if you want to attack. This is your go-to plane. Here we are for the first bomber in rank 2, this thing, the DB3B. Where does it sit? Well, it speaks for itself. 2.7 battle rating right here in the tree. After the AR2 comes the DB3B. Armor protection very limited in this bomber. Only a small steel plate for the pilot. That is very limited. You do have 3 gunners, one here, one here, and one in the front. You have all of them 7.62mm Scush machine guns. Which is not the best gun. That is rifle caliber. We do have several bomb options for example, base bombing or vehicle columns. Whatever you want, you can do it in this plane thanks to those bomb options. So there is that. Let's have a look at this. And here we have the DB3B, the first bomber in Soviet rank 2, 2.7 battle rating, and a sturdy little bugger it is. It is not the best bomber in the world though, and the battle rating is a little bit high, I have to say, for the first bomber in rank 2, but it is what it is, and let's see what she has to offer. What are the strengths in this plane? Well, the bomb loads are pretty strong. You have several bomb loads. with big heavy bombs, but you also have bomb loads with a lot of smaller bombs. I remind myself of the 250 kilogram bombs and the 10 100 kilogram bombs, for example. That is a nice bomb load for convoy running, for vehicle running, and for example the 1000 kilogram and the 500s is a nice setup for base bombing. So for whatever you want to do, this plane has a bomb load, and that is good to have. Now, second strong point in this plane is the durability. As you see, we're getting peppered here by a fighter that's quite close to me, and I'm hanging in there, man. He has 2 gunners in the back, and they do good work, but they are only 7.62 millimeter guns, so that is basically rifle size bullets. It doesn't do a lot, but she can take a lot of damage, and that's a strong point in this plane. Aside from that, she can also turn, so she's quite maneuverable. Not in the roll rate, it's quite sluggish in the roll rate, but in the flat turn time, she's actually quite decent for such a big bomber. And you can surprise a few planes with that and avoid a few shots, and hopefully somebody can save you. The weaknesses in the plane is the speed. It is not a very fast plane, it's not a very fast bomber. Many bombers at this battle rating can take up to 500, 530 when it comes to speed. This one sits in the early 400s, and that's 100 kilometers an hour difference, which is major. So the speed is a weakness, and the gunners. As I just said, she has 3 turrets, 1 forward facing, 2 to the back, and they're all single 7.62 millimeter machine guns, which is nothing to write home about. So yeah, not very good, and the spread also doesn't cover the whole plane there. So how can you use this plane the best? Well, there are 2 ways to approach this plane. The flight style as a base bomber is very near and dear to my heart, as you stay up, and in the smaller maps in the beginning it can be quite nice, but you also have big maps and you get outclimbed. You're gonna get caught up by some of the interceptors and stuff like that. But as a base bomber, she does have the bomb loads for it, and it's the safest setup. Next to that, you can do some close air support. She does have good bomb loads for that, as I mentioned, the 10-100s, but you also have a 10-100 plus 250 kilogram bomb setup, which is quite good. So yeah, those 2 roles she can perform. She is not competitive in my eyes. She's too vulnerable, not too good with the gunners. So yeah, the fun factor in this plane is medium, not too great. It's quite frustrating, and she's also mediumly recommended by me. I would not rate this plane too high. She is not the best bomber out there. She has some big weaknesses, and yeah, no more than a medium recommendation. Next bomber in line is the IL-4. Without doubt the best looking bomber in the Soviet 3 so far, no? I think so. She sits right here, IL-4 at 3.0 battle rating. Awesome. Let's have a look at the armor. A little bit for the gunners in the back, nice. And for the pilot, that is something. Yeah. Well, these gunners, again, same kind of setup. Right here, this is a Berzin. This is a Berzin, that's a good gun. And for the rest, it's those caliber pop guns. Smaller caliber pop guns, I would say. Let's see, we have the same bomb loads as on the DB3B, so there's not much difference there. Good setup for both column attacks as base bombing. Let's have a look. Ah, the IL-4. Very nice indeed. Why is this so much more enjoyable? Because she has a better gunner, but we'll get into that later. This is the same kind of Soviet sturdiness with the same kind of bomb loads as the bomber that we just saw. There is a few differences, and we'll get into those. What are the strengths in the IL-4 sitting at 3.0 battle rating? The bomb loads are exactly identical to the DB3B, with the exception that this one also has a torpedo option. This is one of the few planes in the Soviet line that actually can carry a torpedo, which is, for you naval lovers out there, it's a vital thing to have. So yeah, it has a torpedo. Durability in the plane is again pretty good. I have suffered a lot of damage in this plane, and she can take it. She can still fly and get you home. It's a sturdy plane, that's for sure. Another strength again is the maneuverability. She rolls decently well. She turns decently well for a bomber. So yeah, she's all right in the maneuverability. What are the weaknesses in this plane? The speed. IL-4 is a slow bomber, especially at 3.0. That is definitely getting up there in battle rating. And for the low 400s that this plane runs, I mean, and that is the maximum top speed, right? You usually run somewhere in the 300s. It's not a fast plane, that's for sure. The gunners is not a weakness anymore. Why? This plane also has 3 gunners, same placements as in the DB3B, but one of the 7.62s, the top turret there, has been changed to a 12.7 Barrison UB machine gun. This is one of the strongest 12.7s in the game, and that's why it's not weak anymore. It's also not strong because you still only have 3 points, but well, it is not bad anymore. Only speed is a weakness. The flight style in this bomber is definitely tube folded again. She's a base bomber, and she can also close air support. Base bombing, she does have the same bomb load, so you do have that 1000 kilogram plus 2 500s for the base bombing, which is very nice. And then you can run close air support with 10 100 kilogram bombs and 2 250 kilogram bombs. That is nice bomb loads for vehicle columns and stuff like that. So she can do both, and this one can also perform in naval, ground and air. This plane has viable options for all 3 of those game modes. So that's good. She's good. Is she competitive? Yes, I would say. But barely. I mean, this is the best Soviet rank 2 bomber in my opinion, but she still isn't strong compared to some nations, some other nations bomber at 3.0. What is the fun factor? I would say medium. You get a little bit of survivability added to it with the durability and the Barrison in the top turret, which is good, but it's still not high, the fun factor in this plane. You die a lot and there's a lot of frustration. Do you recommend this plane? How highly do you value her? I would say still medium. This is the best, as I said, bomber, but she still is a frustrating bomber. And I cannot recommend it highly. I would stick to the IL-2s in the Soviet lines, to be honest, not touch the bombers at all. But that's just my humble opinion. Alright guys, last but not least in the bomber line and the whole rank 2 Soviets is these things, the PE2 Peshkas. There is 3 of them sitting in one neat little folder here. The 1, the 31 and the 83, and they're all 3.7. And why on earth is that? This one has much less turrets and smaller forward facing guns compared to this one. But hey, they're still the same battle rating. Beats me. I don't know, man. That's Gaijin material. Secret documents in the headquarters, right? There is some armor protection on this plane, which is nice. It is nice indeed. And we have the setup here with the back facing gunner with the Barrison. Here is a smaller caliber gun. And we have the forward facing guns right here with an offensive Barrison as well. Loadout, fuel loadout, the basics are all the same. It's just the gun setups that are a little different for the other models, which is alright. Here we have the setup with bombs and rockets for the bombing in this plane. And why on earth they are 3.7 battle rating, that beats me. They are based on the model of the PE3s, which sit at 2.3, 2.7. And this frame at 3.7, well, let's have a look. Here we go with the PE2s, the bomber version of the P3s. The only difference is that these bombers sit at 3.7 battle rating, while those two P3s sit at 2.3 and 2.7. What the fuck? Really? A full battle rating higher? So what makes these PE2 so magnificent, would you say? And there are 3 of them. The 1, the 31 and the 83, I believe. And they are all the same battle rating, while the first one starts with two 7.62 forward-facing guns. The other two have Beresins, and the first one only has two turrets, 7.2s, and the third one has two Beresin turrets and two 7.62 turrets. So there's major differences in survivability and gunnery and stuff like that in these PE2s, and they are at the same 7.3 battle rating. This is an oversight by Gaijin. This is inexplainable and very strange indeed. There should be something like 2.7, 3.0, and 3.3, not 3.7, all of them. But anyway, they're too highly in the battle rating, too highly placed, especially the first one, and it is very strange that there's no difference between these three. But let's go into the strings of these PE3s and see what there is to see. These are bombers with offensive guns. Offensive guns are always nice. As I said, there is differences between them. The final two have a Beresin and a 7.62. The first one only has 7.62s. But they all have offensive guns, and that's a good thing to have in a bomber. I always like that. The maneuverability for a bomber is absolutely fantastic. Of course, it is an attacker slash heavy fighter frame that has been transformed into a bomber. But yeah, it is maneuverable, and that's a good thing. You can dogfight a little bit here and there. Weaknesses in these planes are the bomb loads are very limited, 2 500s or a very small number of smaller bombs. Is nothing to write home about. It's column attack is an option. You have an option of 2 250s and 4 100 kilogram bombs. You can do some vehicle runs there. That's nice. She is mainly a close air support. And she compresses a lot in the lower ends of dice and stuff like that. So, and she compresses badly. So you gotta keep that in mind. That is a definite weakness in this plane. Of course, a main weakness that I just talked about is the battle ratings. 3.7 battle ratings for these PE3s is absolutely ridiculous. They should be lowered to something like 2.3 or 2.7 for the first one, and then increase them up to, for example, 3.0 and 3.3, or 2.7 and 3.0, because I really don't think they're that good. The flight style in this plane is, in these planes, is close air support, and she could be used as a support fighter, actually. Coming from the fringes, once you drop your bombs, you have those forward-facing guns. A Beresin UB machine gun with 150 rounds, and that smaller caliber 7.62 Shkash cannon with 450 rounds it is, I believe. So that is some nice offensive weaponry that you can use to either defend yourself aggressively or to help some players out on the fringes. Get some plane kills in as well. Is this plane competitive? I would say no. At this battle rating, no. 3.7, really? I mean, you face a lot of awesome planes at that battle rating. You're gonna die. It's unfortunate. It was a tough thing to fly. A lot of XP50s, Mustangs, Thunderbolts, you name it. Corsairs. You're gonna face it. It's gonna be painful. And no, at this battle rating, it's not competitive. If it would be more in range where the P3s are, then it would be much more competitive. But in this battle rating, no. Is the fun factor nice? Is it fun to play? No. Yeah, I would say maybe medium, because you can still do something, especially in down tiers. But these planes are too highly placed in the battle rating to be fun. You face too many strong planes that will eat you up alive. Do you recommend this plane? How highly do you value her? I would say medium. The plane on sich, you know, especially the third one, is quite strong. But at 3.7 battle rating, again, you just don't have the tools to do extremely well. You can still kill planes and do some stuff, but you will often be jumped on, and it's quite frustrating. So I would skip these. Hey guys, you have reached the guide and tip section of this video. At the end, we're gonna go through what you can do best to grind through this stuff the fastest, and what the actual best planes are, because each plane has something, but what is the most efficient way to grind, and which planes help you do that best? Well, let's start off with the bombers. If you like ground pounding, if you like attacking, and you like to fly bombers, the best option would be the IL-2. But how to get there? I would advise you to take a PE3 out and then go to the IL-2 and grind with that. These PE2s are too high of a battle rating. There's 3 of them there, but the battle rating does not compute with the quality of the plane, in my opinion. The IL-2 is the best bomber, but, and I'm gonna say this without reservation, I would advise you as a bomber pilot to stick with the IL-2s. These 2 planes are freaking amazing. Even though the IL-2 is the best bomber in my opinion, it cannot stand in the shadow of these IL-2s. So what I would recommend is fly the first PE3 until you get the IL-2 1941 and then get to the IL-42. And you can also stick in the IL-2 40. I can't speak anymore. You can also stick in the 1941. This is an awesome plane with an amazing battle rating. This one gets to 23 millimeters. They have the same kind of loadouts, the same kind of turn fighting capability. They are both awesome. I would just stick with it and forget about the whole bomber line. Forget about this. Just unlock them and never look at them again. That's what I would do. But hey, that's my advice. If you want to fly a bomber, fly the IL-4. But if you want a ground pound, and that goes for you strike aircraft people, your attackers, and the bomber pilots, I would advise you to get to the IL-2 as soon as possible and then stick with them. And that's it. It's easy. For the fighters, it is a bit more mixed. Okay, you have the jack of all trade lines here, the Yaks. You have the boom and zoomers, the mix with a turn fighter mixed in. And you have the energy fighting line, the Lags or La line, the Lavoshkins. And yeah, so it really depends a little bit on what you want to do. But what the shining planes are, the absolute beasts, is the MiG-315 and the BK are good. And the LA-5 is awesome. And the Yak-7B is awesome. Now, why would I select this plane out of all of these? The Yak-9s are good. I really like the Yak-9, but speed-wise it is quite similar, and it's a little bit more maneuverable, but the gun setup of the Yak-7B is just so much more awesome with 2 Berzins, and the battle rating is 2 points lower, sorry. So 7B is awesome. The Yak-1 is also nice to begin with, but yes. If I would have to grind through this whole line, I would start with the Yak-315 with 1.7 battle rating. I would stay with that until I have the Yak-7B. I would then go into the Yak-7B until I have the LA-5 unlocked and would finish the line off with the LA-5. So that's just 3 planes out of all of these awesome planes. There is more good planes. So the Lag-3s, I would skip them. The Lag-366 is a nice energy fighter. You could try that plane if you really like the energy fighting line. The Cannon MiG-3 is also nice if you want a bit of turn fighting. But there's so many good fighters in this line. The Yak-1 and the Yak-1B are also both good. There's nothing wrong with them. But and the Yak-9 as well. I would skip the Yak-9B, by the way. But there's so many planes you could fly here. But again, if I would have to make my pick, I would start with the MiG-3 line, Yak-315, Yak-7B, and then LA-5. And that would be it. That would be the most efficient way to grind. But as I said, the Lag-366, the Yak-9, the Yak-1, there are several other good fighters that you could try out. And if you want to spay them, then go ahead and have some fun. But the Lag-335 I would skip. The early Lag-3s I would skip. I would skip the I-16. It's fun, but I don't know. It's not that awesome. And I would try out several of the Yaks if you want to fly out anything. But okay, that's about it. I think I have repeated myself enough. The most ideal for the bombers and attackers among us is the IL-2s. Get to the IL-2s through the PE3, and then only fly the IL-2s. Unlock the whole line. Done. You'll have fun. And with the fighters, the MiG-315, Yak-7B, and the LA-5. That's what I would recommend. Those planes are all worthy of a talisman as well. But there's more, right, as I said. But that's the most efficient way for me, and I would advise you to do that. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this rank review. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.